Okay, let's get the show on the road. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Career Catapult podcast. Let me begin by saying that I am a big fan of internal promotions. Okay, I don't want you to infer from our title today that I am not. Okay, I love me a good internal promotion. If you can land an internal promotion where you make more money, you do better, have more impact and not have to move your family or disrupt yourself in any way, listen, I'm all for it. In fact, if you look at your career history and your only promotions have come as a result of you leaving the company, meaning external promotions, then you've got some work to do because you do want to be the kind of person who can join a company of people who don't know you and very quickly build a strong brand, gain coalition, gain consensus, get things done, rise to the top 1 to 10% of talent at that company so that you are on the path to promotion and then actually make that promotion happen, right? That is a skill. That is a kind of person who does that. And you do want to be the kind of person who does that. You don't want to always have to leave to get promoted. So again, I want to say very clearly, internal promotion, good, okay? And yet we are going to talk today about the hidden risk of internal promotions. The hidden risk of internal promotions. If you are going to be somebody who is going to stay at a company for a long period of time and move up within that company, there is a risk I want you to be aware of. Not that you shouldn't do it, you should, but with your eyes open. And that's what today's episode is going to be about. I'm going to do this in story form because I love stories. And after 10 years and over 10,000 people that I've spoken to in the capacity of executive coach, I have amassed a lot of stories that fit pretty much every conceivable career topic. Okay. So today I'm going to share with you the story of a woman who was at her company for 19 years. She joined the company as a manager and became a senior vice president. So she moved up through the ranks over 19 years and became senior vice president. Okay. In a way, she grew up at this company. Her entire really career was at this company. Okay. And she was getting promoted. That's how she moved up to SVP. Every, couple years, 2, 3, 4 years, she would land a new role, land a new promotion. And the reason she was getting promoted is because she was very good. She was really good. Good at solving problems, good at getting things done. Her leadership trusted her, they valued her, and they rewarded her with not just title, but comp as well. She'd become very, very well compensated in her promotion. She'd done very well for herself. Okay. Now, fast forward, her company gets acquired. And with the acquisition, her CEO exits and a new CEO is brought in. This was a private equity deal. Okay. New CEO comes in and she notices that things are a little bit different with this new CEO. You see, her former CEO, they had worked together for over 10 years. She had built a strong relationship with him. They had gotten to the place where they didn't need to, like, they could just have a conversation. They could just have a conversation. He didn't need to see a whole lot of presentations and pitch decks and spreadsheets and all of that. They could just discuss the problem. She could keep him updated. He was content with lengthy conversations about anecdotes, right? This new CEO had a different style. He wanted the spreadsheets. He wanted the calculations. He wanted the numbers. He wanted the forecasts. He wanted the pitch decks, right? And that was just one of the differences, but that was a big difference. And over time, she started to see, the writing's on the wall here. I'm not quite I don't have the gold star I used to have around here, right? Things are a little bit different. The tide has shifted. It's a new regime, and it's not going so well for me here. Now, no one had said anything. Nobody had said anything to her about it. But you don't get to be SVP without being savvy. She was starting to put 2 and 2 together, and she realized she probably had months maybe, right, before she was going to be exited from the organization. And so she decided to take matters into her own hands and look for another role. And she said, I've been SVP, so I'm actually going to go after COO. She always wanted to be COO. And so now with this exit, she thought, I'm going to land a COO role. Within days of deciding this, she reaches out to her network and boom, just like that, she had 8 recruiter conversations scheduled. Her network was rallying. They were coming through for her. People were sending her roles, referrals, even the former CEO who she had stayed close with, sending her opportunities left and right. So there was no shortage of opportunities, no shortage of referrals, no shortage of coffee chats. Her calendar was full of coffee chats. Okay. So there's a lot of traction there. But 9 months later, no COO role. She had not managed to close the deal anywhere. Again, lots of conversations, lots of interviews. She was getting interviews. She was getting to the final round in some stages. She was being flown in to see the meet the people, see the operations, see the products, meet the team, right? A lot of whining and dining. But when it came down to the wire, like, okay, we actually need to hire somebody as COO. When it came down to her and two other people, or her and one other person, she wasn't closing the deal. She had lost multiple opportunities at that point. Because it came down to, again, we love you, we love your personality, we love your background. But when they were looking to hire somebody, there were certain gaps that were emerging. Because it turned out that they wanted their next COO, many of these companies, they wanted their next COO to come with certain competencies, some of which she did not have or could not convince them. I'll say it this way, could not convince them that she had. I'm going to do a little detour here and talk about something I share with our clients pretty much every day. I'm like a broken record. I say this every single day in our program. Companies are looking to hire people for a particular moment in time. What do I mean by that? The company is not just floating in this abyss of a timeline. No, they have goals. They have certain elements of their vision that they are implementing at a particular time. For instance, a company might be looking to go to IPO. They may be looking to be acquired. They may be looking to acquire, right? They may be looking to expand into other countries. There's something cooking. Just because you may not be involved in it doesn't mean it's not happening. There is something happening in this company that I call it the moment in time. And companies hire people that they feel are a good fit for that moment in time. Do you see that? So it's not enough to say, oh, here's a list of all the things I've done. What's the moment in time that this company's in, and are you a good fit for that? That's really important. So as it turned out, every time she got close, certain gaps emerged. I'm going to share with you some of those gaps, some of the things that people were looking for, asking for, that she had. Some of them she had, some she didn't, but some she did. But again, wasn't able to really convince them that she did. Let me share with you some of those. Many of them wanted a person who had developed and implemented a 5-year business or functional strategy, a roadmap for multiple years, 5 years. They wanted somebody who had delivered significant top-line growth. Okay, significant top-line growth. I'm talking some of the people she was competing with, 8 figures, 9 figures, right? They also wanted somebody who had delivered significant bottom-line impact, because it's not enough to sell more. If we can't sell more efficiently, it may not even be worth it. They wanted both. They wanted somebody who had led global business expansion, right? We want to open up 6 new countries. We want somebody who's done that. We want to scale the business 10x. We want someone who's done that. They wanted somebody with board influence, board readiness, who had not only gone and done some updates, but recommendations, owned outcomes that the board actually cared about. They wanted somebody who had led enterprise-wide transformation, who had allocated capital in the millions. These are some of the things and more. I have a long list here, but lots of things. M&A. They wanted somebody who had had all of these experiences and competencies such that it was obvious. It was obvious. And she was not able to demonstrate that she had those competencies in spades. Whether or not she did or didn't isn't even the point of this episode. Okay? It wasn't coming through loud and clear to them. Now, here's what I really want you to know. When I say the danger or the risk of internal promotions, this woman was getting promoted every few years at her company. This was a shock to the system. This was a shock to the system. Why? Because even though she was going up in title, even though she was going up in comp significantly, They really valued her there. Nobody was making sure that the title she was being awarded translated equally in the marketplace. Meaning, when she got promoted from manager to director, did anybody say, hey, what does a director do out there in the marketplace? And can we make sure that she's getting a chance to do those things? Hey, what does a VP do? The average VP or a top 1% VP in the marketplace, what would I expect that person to do? And is she doing that here? Hey, when she got SVP, did we make sure that she had developed and implemented there was a plan for a 9-figure top line growth? No, no. More importantly, whose job is it to do that? Is it the company's job? Is it HR's job to say, yes, we've promoted you and here's our plan to make you more marketable? No, that's not HR's job to make you more marketable somewhere else to somebody else. It is your job. It is your career. You are in the driver's seat. You are the CEO of your own career. And that wasn't happening. She wasn't doing those things. So she was crushing it in her job. It's kind of like, I hate that I have to use this analogy, but it just popped into my head. And I think it's really, it may make this even more clear. Okay. It's like when you are in, let's say that you attend a certain high school and you are the champion on the basketball team and everybody loves you there. You're the champion, right? But then now you go play in the NBA. It's the same sport. It's still basketball. But can you see how it feels like it's not even the same sport? There, you're not a champion. This is a similar thing. Not quite as drastic, but similar in nature. Right? When you are at a company, you are insulated. You have a cap. There's a ceiling there. You're in a bubble. You're in a bubble. And you think this is the real world. You think this is all there is. And unless your company is in the top 1% of companies on all these different things, and even if they were, it's not obvious that just being in the top 1% of companies means all the functions are in the top 1%. You could be at a great company, but maybe the business unit that you're in or the HR function that you're in or the supply chain function could be better, right? But it is up to you to keep your wits about you, to know how you are ranking and stacking. This is important. You can't put blinders on and say, well, I'm doing great here. Now, you might say, well, Stella, I'm planning to stay here. I've been here 19 years. I've been here 20 years, 25 years. This is where I'm going to stay. I'm going to retire here. Okay. She probably thought the same thing. And then look what happened. Did she know they were going to get acquired? Did she know that the CEO would be on the outs? Did she know that they would be acquired by a private equity? Did she know the new CEO would come in with a completely different style? Did she know that he wouldn't be a fan of hers? Did she know that her operating reality, her day-to-day was going to change so drastically? Now all of a sudden there's this anxiety that wasn't there before because she worked with the old CEO and they got along great. She didn't have to work. The job was hard. She had big problems to solve, but the least of her problems was reporting to the CEO. She's like, I know this person. Did she know now that the biggest source of anxiety for her would be driving into work, wondering what the day was going to bring with this new CEO? No. You cannot rest on your laurels. You cannot assume nothing will change. You cannot assume that everyone will, this is a game of freeze. Everyone will, I'm working on my career. Everybody stands still. The company can't change anything. No. You have to be moving as if it's going to change. You have to expect that it will, because it probably will. Right? And so now here she is wanting to land the COO role, which she's very capable of. She can do the job. But when it was time to convince an organization that she possessed the competencies in spades, that she was the best of the candidates, that's where the gaps emerged. Right? And it was in part because, and this is the thing I want you to get, her title and her compensation had far outpaced her experiences. Her title and her comp were moving more rapidly than her experiences and her competencies could keep up. And so it created when that happens, and if you're in that position, it creates risk. This is the part that I said is not sexy and nobody likes to talk about. It creates risk. It creates risk. You know, there's research out there. This is pretty old research. It says that if you stay at a company for longer than 2 years, over time, you will end up leaving 50% of your earning potential on the table. And when I first read that research, I thought, boy, that's pretty harsh, you know. But what they were really saying was, it's not that you shouldn't stay at a company for longer than 2 years. It's that you shouldn't do that with blinders on. You shouldn't do that on autopilot. After 2 years, you really should be assessing the landscape and making a choice to stay. It should be a choice, not inertia. That's really what the research was saying, right? I'm going to take it a step further and say that if you stay at a company longer than 2 years and you're not assessing your competencies and your experiences, you are going to leave 50% of your promotion potential on the table. Just like you leave 50% of your earning potential, your promotion, your external promotion potential gets diminished the longer, because your experiences, you're not, this is true only if you are not intentionally curating those experiences. Do you get my point? Nothing wrong with staying a long time. I love it. It's really, what's the intention behind it? What's the strategy? Is there a strategy? Or are you at the mercy of whatever your job description says? Now, you might listen to this and say, well, what do I do with this information? Well, there are two things. I'm never going to come here and deliver this kind of news to you and not tell you what to do about it. Okay, so there are two things I want you to do. You might be, if you are somebody who is currently employed at a company right now, then what you need to do is to start to raise your hand for the stretch assignments, the difficult projects. They're there. They're there. When I got promoted, I joined a company and got promoted 4 months in. And the reason that happened is because of exactly this. I saw an opportunity to work on something that was pretty difficult, that no one else was doing. Nobody asked me to do. In fact, my boss was like, great, but I still need you to do this thing that I actually hired you to do. So I did both, right? That's the only way. You will have to demonstrate those competencies, learn those competencies by doing the work. Your company is, for instance, there might be an acquisition. Your company might say, hey, we've got a 5-year acquisition growth plan, right? They're going to need a team to do that. They're going to need a team of people to do that. We're preparing for IPO. There's a team, there's an inside team that's doing that, right? If you are not raising your hand for those kinds of assignments, someone else will, and someone else will get them. Now, does it mean that just by raising your hand and telling your boss, I want that kind of project, it's boom, it's instantly yours? No. No. There's probably a few steps. You have to be the person who is delivering already in your current role. You have to be the person who is already in the top 10% of talent. That needs to happen first. You can't raise your hand for a stretch assignment if you're not perceived to be crushing it in your current role. That's number one. And number two, just because you are raising your hand doesn't mean that there isn't a long line of people who already want that thing. But this is where you have to start to exercise your muscle in terms of getting sponsorship, building relations, everything else we talk about on this episode, the relationships, the sponsorship, the career development plans. These are things we coach our clients on behind the scenes. This is where that happens so that you are able to get those stretch assignments. And it's through those stretch assignments, your competencies will grow. Because without them, you're just doing the same old thing you've been doing in your job. You're not getting to do anything that's adding anything to your list of competencies, right? Raise your hand. I want to present to the board. I want to work on that project I know the board cares about. Hey, we're opening a new plant in this country. I want to be an expat for 2 years. Raise your hand for those, right? Many years ago, I was up for a promotion that there was a lot of contention about whether I would get. And I heard, and I worked really hard for it, but I was hearing some things through the grapevine. My boss told me, he said, they like you, but you don't have plant experience. I've always worked for companies that made things. And our CEO at the time really valued people who had come up through the business, would come up through the plant, right? Who can get their hands dirty and actually do things. And see, I had the misfortune of always sitting in a cushy, air-conditioned corporate office. That was how I built my career. And so in his eyes, that was a ding against me, right? So I could have said, well, all right, I guess I'm not qualified, right? Because all of our plans were in places I had no interest in moving to. I did not want to move to Grand Rapids, Minnesota, not Michigan, but Grand Rapids, Minnesota. No, didn't want to move there, right? I don't enjoy ice fishing. So I did not see myself moving to some of these locations. But what I did was I said, okay, let's work something out. I negotiated with my boss and with his peers that I would spend 6 months in said location, but I would do 2 weeks there and 2 weeks home, 2 weeks there and 2 weeks home. And I would work on XYZ project that was a stretch assignment, right? And doing that allowed me to get that planned experience that had stood in the way of me landing that promotion, right? I was able to negotiate. So now that's how you negotiate competencies and experiences. Do you see that? You don't just say, okay, well, my job doesn't require that, or I'm doing my job, I'm doing what I'm asked to do. You have to ask yourself, what are the competencies required for the next level? And how do I get that? First, you'd have to know what those are and then seek them out. They're there. They are there. It's just a matter of whether you are aware of them and whether you are raising your hand for them and doing that consistently enough that eventually becomes yours. Okay. Because again, if you allow your title and your comp to outpace your experiences, you create undue risk in your career, the kind of risk that you may not even know is there until you try to leave and land something bigger. Now, if you want to leave and land something that's the same, you want to leave and take a demotion, this does not apply to you at all. This only applies when you decide, I want to jump a level. I want to land something bigger. I want to finish with, in her case, she was like, this is the role I wanted. I want to finish well. I want to finish with my final hurrah, my C-suite title. If that's you, then this is when this applies, right? That's when this applies. Those who do this well, they are raising their hands. So that's the first thing I want you to know to get from this episode is raise your hand for difficult assignments, raise your hand for stretch assignments, get the competencies in your current role. Now you might say to me, Stella, but I'm not at the job anymore. And I wish we would have had this conversation while I was there. I would have done things differently, but I've already left. So what do I do? Okay, let me talk about that piece. You're right. You can't go back and redo the job. You've already done it. You can't do it any differently than you did. So the only option available to you at that point is to get really good at translating what you did into the language that actually matters, into compelling language, into the language of that list I just read out to you a few minutes ago, right? You have to do the translation. That's the work. Many months ago, we had somebody in our program who did the work and was able to say, I built billion-dollar go-to-market strategies. I built billion-dollar growth engines. Before she joined our program, that was not a sentence she had ever uttered. She didn't even know that she had built billion-dollar growth engines. That was not in her awareness. It wasn't until she did the work in our program and actually starts to add some of those numbers up and was like, oh, yeah, I have. And now that became a compelling statement, a compelling phrase. And so good luck going against her in an interview. She's going to win, and she did. Good luck going after the role that she wants. She's done the work to build a brand that is compelling, right? Now, what many people do is they rely on their operational KPIs. They say, oh, let's pick an example. I have fixed the onboarding and I improved onboarding timelines from 30 days to 14 days. That's great. But nobody cares about that. Where is that on the P&L? Where did that show up? What did that do? Nobody cares at that level. Your boss cares. The HR team that was dealing with the onboarding pressures, they care. Does the market care at the next level is the question. So you don't have to go reinvent new stories. You don't make anything up. You take what you did, but you do the hard work of translating it into dollars and cents, into board exposure, into business expansion. You take what you have and you do the translation because it does translate. It all does. It all does. One of the things I hear people say is, oh, Stella, I haven't done, I've never worked in sales or I've never worked in procurement, so I don't know how to talk in dollars. No, I don't care if you worked in the janitor's office. Everything you do has impact to the bottom line and the top line. And it's up to you to find a way to tell that story. I'm an expert at that. That's what I do most of my time. Okay, most of the time I work with our clients, I take their stories and we workshop them so that we can come up with compelling statements that make them an obvious choice for the role that they want. There's no other way to do this. Otherwise, you come up as runner up, and she was coming up as runner up every time, runner up, runner up. And I'm not interested in that, right? The only thing I'm interested in is the offer, is when you call me and say, we did it. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to hear. That's because I know that's what you want. I want that for you. Okay. So that is the hidden risk of internal promotions, because guess what? Like I said, her title was working. The title did its job. The title got her in the room. When the time comes, the title will get you in the room, but it's not going to do any talking. Your experiences will do the talking. So you better cultivate those experiences so that they are saying the right things. Share this episode with at least one person in your network who you know needs to hear this. Someone who you know wants to land a skip level promotion externally, has built a significant career at a certain company. Are they doing the work to make that translation? Are they doing the work to make themselves marketable? This episode may make all the difference for them. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here soon.